Hey guys, and welcome to The Broken Sword.
Hello everybody.
So, we are back for our episode 2 breakdown for the Rings of Power.
Yep, this is still like the last episode where we haven't watched it since the premiere a couple of days ago. So again, apologies if a couple of things are maybe forgotten or misremembered, might be a better way to put it.
I think we've got it all, don't we? We'll see.
Yeah.
So, just with, as with episode 1, we're going to go through story by story. In episode 1, we did scene by scene in order.
Yeah.
In this, we're going to break down, I guess, character storylines. So we'll go through Galadriel's entire story first, then the Harfoots, for example, and we'll break down pros and cons for each storyline.
Yes, and yeah, feel like this is a nice way to do it than just, you know, a generic breakdown. It's something different. Gives us a chance to be, here are the good points, here are the bad points. I mean, sometimes we might be more generous with the pros, sometimes we might be more harsh with the cons.
Yeah.
But we'll just see how it goes. It's just a fun way to have a chat about the episode.
I do want to add our overall sort of thoughts to the start of the review, though, because
it gets lost by the end.
It gets lost. I mean, we said a lot of things at the end of the last review, which many of the comments would agree with, but sadly clearly didn't make it to the end of the review and just started shouting at us. So I'll get this out of the way. We think this show is a fantastic TV series, like so far. But if you are a big fan of the Tolkien lore, there are things you are going to have to let go of in order to enjoy this show.
Yes, I know some people can't let go of it, think it's a disgrace. Personally, as an adaptation, I can maybe forgive bits and have to accept others, maybe don't agree with them. Definitely don't agree with some things that have happened, as we mentioned before, and we will mention again in this episode. But it's an adaptation, and I love being back in Middle-earth, so I will accept I might be more welcoming than some, but I do think it's a good show.
At the end of the day, this is fan fiction. Professor Tolkien died a long time ago, so no, this is not Tolkien. People just seem to forget that.
Yes.
Let's try and enjoy it for what it is. So, we'll start off with Galadriel's storyline.
Yes.
So in this episode, she has just jumped off the boat to Valinor.
Yes, she is just kind of floating there in the water, I guess, going, what did I do that for?
Yeah, we mentioned this in part 1. It was a big con for us, this whole sequence. I enjoyed seeing like a journey to Valinor, but Galadriel's motivations and like character-wise, it just didn't make sense. Like, why get to Valinor and then decide, I'm gonna swim all the way to Middle-earth? Like, it just didn't make sense. But in this, she's on her way back. She's, you know, stroking her way back to land, and she comes across a shipwrecked group of people, I suppose.
Yes, a group who are initially mostly unwilling to let her come aboard. Don't really question where she came from, which is a bit of a weird one. They're just kind of like, it's a random woman floating in the sea. That's normal.
No, I think they do question it.
A little bit, but it's like they don't trust her. Yeah. They don't know she's an elf at that point, and they still don't trust her.
There was a little thing here that bugged me as well. Like, just before she gets up, she puts the hair over her ears, and then she gets on the boat, and you can see her, like, it's like falling back, and then it cuts to the next shot, and it's back over her ears. That bugged me a little bit, but yeah, story-wise, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they were frustrated when they found out she was an elf, and the one lady pushed her straight overboard. I mean,
yeah,
why?
Yeah, I guess I can understand the whole rations thing. Don't want another body to take up their rations and stuff.
But what is it about an elf? Is it just racism within Middle-earth? Like, do they have a reason to hate the elves, like these people?
It's not specified at this point. They mention, we might be jumping back and forth a bit over the episode, but with the storyline, they mention about there was orcs, and that's why, despite the fact orcs hadn't been seen for hundreds of years, suddenly these people had seen them, which was a bit of a contradictory, like, are they there or not? Is it known or not? I don't know how there being orcs meant they were shipwrecked, like on the ship going away, which then obviously got wrecked by the worm that comes in a minute. It just seemed a bit like all over the place, not quite.
Yeah, and where are they from? Like,
yes,
it can't be Numenor.
Yeah, if you look at the geography of the map and assuming where they would have sailed off to go to Valinor, unless they changed that, but that's also never really specified.
Yeah,
it's just a bit. We kind of mentioned it before, and I guess it's still kind of the case that Galadriel's story at the moment is probably the weakest.
Yeah.
And it feels it's a bit like they're just trying to get somewhere and they're not quite being clear on how they're going to get there. It's just kind of a bit like, she just needs to get here and we'll just...
Yeah, it's frustrating as well because I feel like Morfydd Clark's performance is probably the strongest in the show.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because she's Welsh, but yeah, her storyline's not great. So I feel like even for the start of this, that's a con.
Yes, just a bit, a bit of confusion, so definite con.
Yeah. We then are also at the same time introduced to Halbrand, who is probably going to be a very, very important character, I imagine, or at least a prominently featured character, at least. I didn't get on with his character too much.
No, I'm not connected to his character at all yet. He's one of these additions that I'm not fond of at all.
No.
I don't know why he needs to be there at this point. I don't know what the point of him really is. And I feel like his character kind of went a bit topsy-turvy within the short time we've already met him.
Yeah, I agree.
Like initially, as soon as the worm comes back, he abandons all his companions. Not really sure if they're all friends or just happen to be together. Again, it's not necessarily, might be clear on a rewatch, I guess.
Yeah.
But doing it on a couple of days afterwards, I don't remember it being clear at all what the connection was. But yeah, he abandons them, and then a short time afterwards, he saves Galadriel from being in the water again, where she then gets tied up in the rope and basically is about to drown. And he dives in and saves her from that, as well as bringing on the little bit he's gone off on himself. And it's kind of like that. Well, is he trying to save himself, or is he trying to help? Like, is it just the case of they're going to force a love interest in here?
I really hope not. If they force a love interest, I might be out.
That's a big con, if that's the thing. I mean, they haven't yet, so we can't con it for that right now.
Yeah.
But from hints of the trailer, there might be hints that happens in the future.
There's a lot of things I'm willing to accept and let go in order to enjoy this show. I don't think that would be one. I think that would really...
Yeah, the thing, Galadriel needs Celeborn.
Yes.
And the fact he's just non-existent at this point.
He's bound to be introduced at some point,
He'll be introduced at some point, yeah. But with the time compression, obviously, we don't know how they're doing a lot of things. But basically, I think Halbrand is a bit of a con at this point.
But there are like some people are theorizing that he could turn out to be Sauron. That
would be a big con.
Yeah, I'm not on board with that. I was watching it after hearing those theories and thinking, no, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
But him contradicting his own sort of like you just said, he left his friends and then he saved Galadriel. It makes me think that maybe something big is at play here. Maybe he knows Galadriel's kind of important, and I don't know. I feel like there's more to him than we know.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm not enjoying that. Let's move on to the Seaworm.
Okay, I loved the Seaworm.
It was cool.
It was a random inclusion, but it makes sense. We did a discussion before off camera, the whole idea that in the real world, we know more about space than we know about the ocean. So the fact that we don't know much about Middle-earth's oceans either makes perfect sense. And there will be, if things like the giant eagles and dragons and ents and all that can exist in Middle-earth, then yeah, a giant sea monster makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
there are unnamed things in Middle-earth. It makes perfectly reasonable sense for that to be one of them.
I agree. From the trailer, it was something I was a little bit concerned about. I was like, oh no, they're just trying to create big, huge action set pieces that look impressive, but have no kind of substance.
Yeah.
But watching it on the show, I actually did enjoy it. I thought it looked great, and the cinematography, the way this was shot and edited, I thought was great. There was the way that they kind of filmed online, like in level with the sea line.
Yes.
And it kind of dipped following Galadriel and occasionally dipped underwater. I thought that added a lot of tension and was a bit different. I thought it was really cool. So I think a pro for that.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I definitely think they did a lot of not showing too much with it, which made the creature feel a lot more terrifying and a bit more epic and mysterious. That, yeah, I'm definitely agreeing on the pro.
So this whole Galadriel storyline kind of comes to an end with her arriving. It's either Númenorian, I don't think land, but a ship maybe.
Yeah, it's after that storm, and they were kind of like half passed out from trying to survive it all, and it's the silhouette of the man on the ship, which I'm going to assume is Isildur at this point, judging from trailer footage and stuff. So I'm guessing that's the thing of he saves and brings them on and takes them to Númenor in the next episode, which is. I mean, I can't really say pro or con for that, I guess.
But I feel like this whole storyline was just like a ploy to, like, let's get Galadriel to Númenor.
Yeah.
This is a cool way of doing it. I don't think it was necessary. I think we could have just had her maybe decide at the ceremony with Gil-galad, where he's presenting the crowns. I think we could have just had her go, no, if you guys aren't going to help me, there are people out there that will, and have her just go to Númenor. Yes. I think I would have preferred that.
Yes, because there's also, I guess we're going to backtrack for a second, in that it appears when she was talking to the people on the raft that she didn't know Numenor.
Yeah.
Or didn't know Numenorians, or something along, like she just didn't seem to be clear on the existence of them.
Yeah, which is weird.
Which makes no sense whatsoever to me, because at the very least, even if they're not like well versed in their culture and how powerful they've become, perhaps, they played such an important role in the first stage that they were given Numenor, that the elves would surely know that, for one.
But it's not
And
just
also,
that, but
it's
her
the
best
French,
friend
yeah.
is Elrond, who is brother of Elros, who was the first king of Numenor. So she would definitely know.
Yeah, so yeah, it would have made more sense for almost Elrond to half sideways being like, wow, you know,
Yeah.
my brother's people, great warriors as well.
Yeah.
Or they were back in the day.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that their ancestors, who are, again, time compression wise, we don't really know exactly.
I mean,
We're assuming
Elros has to be dead.
Yes, but we don't know if it's like, was he dead like 50 years ago, a couple of hundred years ago, or actually 1,000? Like, we don't understand that time. And this is where the time compression whole thing is
Yeah.
confusing.
I want to give
annoyance
this
as
whole
well.
thing a con, I think, just because it could have
Yeah.
been done a lot better and should have been done a lot better.
Yes.
What they did with it, they did well, but it was the wrong decision.
Okay.
Let's move on from Galadriel's story and look at the Harfoots and the Stranger.
Yes, the pleasant surprise so far of the show for me.
Yes,
like
agreed.
we kind of said last time, I was going in expecting to really dislike this storyline.
Yeah.
And I really want to see more of it.
Same. It's intriguing. Like, the Harfoots, I'm glad are involved. There was a lot of debate about them being involved, a lot of debate about the casting.
Yes.
But I feel like the people that are complaining about those things haven't read
No.
or researched Tolkien
And
properly.
I will shamelessly plug now. Monday's episode on the channel is about the history of the race of the hobbits and the people that came before, which includes the Harfoots. So it'll give you a bit of an idea of what was actually written about them and how their existence in
Yeah.
the show can make sense.
Yes.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the episode kind of starts with, obviously the meteor landed last episode, so it's Nori discovering the giant body of Meteor Man, the Stranger. And there's the initial bit where kind of wakes him up. He kind of absorbs the fire of the meteor and then explodes it back out. Which was quite a cool introduction.
It was pretty cool,
And it very much straight away makes you go, oh, the Stranger's magical.
yeah.
So that also hints at the potential Amaya, maybe.
Yeah.
Something else like that could possibly be, but we still don't really know.
They also have a little bit of play with kind of like slapstick comedy here, like really kind of old school, like with the cart.
Yes,
They
once
turn
once
around
he's
and the
first
cart
passed
rolls.
out, yes.
Yeah, which I think if you described that to me, I'd be like, nope. But it made me laugh.
Yeah, for me, it gave me the Merry and Pippin vibes of the Hobbits,
Yeah.
which I think has helped kind of like make them appeal more to the wider audience.
Yeah, it
I
just
know
would
there will
fit.
be people who don't like that part, but I quite like it to represent the people.
Yeah, and in terms of live action, if we want to feel like we're in Middle Earth, it has to in some way relate to Peter Jackson's films, because that's all we know
Yes.
in terms of Middle Earth in live action. So these little nods to that sort of vibe that Peter Jackson created, I guess you could say, it helps settle
Yes.
us in what we're familiar with. So I'd give it a pro, personally.
Yeah, I think the pro of just the introduction of the Stranger, I think gets a pro for one.
Ding.
And I actually think a second pro is for the general Harfoot feel continuing
Yeah.
on and
Ding.
not being overwhelmed by this big magical thing coming in. They're still what they are,
Yeah.
despite this. And I like that.
So later on, Nori brings the stranger some food in the form of
Yes.
snails. She shows him, take the snail out, you eat it. That was gross.
It was.
Even her eating it was gross, but then he kind of just snatches the snails off her and eats them shell and all. And that was just as gross. Both of us have a really we don't like the sound of eating and chewing. It was worse than Denethor and his tomatoes.
Yes, and that's saying something.
I'm gonna give it a con. I don't care what you say. It was a cool scene, but I didn't like it.
Yes, and from that, I can't think of which order, if this happened before the snails actually, or whether it did happen after, in terms of the episode now. Apologies for that. But there's the bit with the stars, and he's scratching with the stick, because then it comes with the fireflies. So
Yeah,
that
that
whole
was the
part,
last bit, I think.
that is towards the end part. Yeah, so he's scratching away, and he's trying to obviously communicate something to Nori, and Nori can't understand him. And it ends up when a friend comes and the fireflies appear that he's kind of trying to show the stars. I'm guessing trying to show where he came from or where he was trying to get to. Basically, where he landed, where he's looking up at the stars, they're not the right stars for where he should be at, is what I
Yeah.
kind of got from it.
Yeah.
there was one moment that took me out by here, and I may be alone in this, but we've mentioned, we've mentioned odd bits of dialogue sometimes just make you go, oh, right, that was an odd bit. And Nori mentioning constellations seemed a bit of a big word for the more simplistic people that they are.
I agree with that.
Which was a bit of a shame. I was quite in that scene and trying to be like, well, what's happening? And then it was just, I don't know why that word just took me out of that scene for a moment.
I just don't know why she would know that word.
No, I could potentially understand if Lenny Henry's character potentially said it because he has the books, he knows these things. He's previously been looking up at the sky, looking at the stars. But yeah, just that word for it seemed a bit...
Look on it.
Seemed a bit odd.
Yes, okay, let's talk about the Fireflies then. So Nori and her friend arrive with these lanterns, and she says, like, he's clearly straight away attracted to the fire, the light, whichever one. And she says, yeah, we use fireflies. So he basically uses the fireflies with the stars, but then, I guess you could call it the twist. The big moment is all the fireflies die.
Yes.
Now, it's unclear why. It's obviously hinting either that he is kind of like absorbing the life of them, he in some way absorbs fire, or perhaps he's using some kind of dark magic. I'm not exactly clear on what's going on, but it doesn't seem good.
No, it's a really tough one of whether it is that it's all dark and he's draining the life, or if it's just he's a powerful being who can't control himself yet. He can't talk again yet. Assuming he can talk in the future. He can't communicate what he wants to communicate properly, and he just can't control this almighty power he's got. I mean, we had the moment with the scream and the trees and almost became a Jedi for a second with the Force. But there's obviously so much power inside this being that he can't control properly yet. So I don't know if it's just that, as opposed to evil. Like, it's been set up in a nice way of it could go either way at this point, and it's one of those nice discussion points of trying to decide who he is. Yeah. Because you could go, oh no, he could be a blue wizard. Should hopefully not be Gandalf. Could be an evil Maya that's been sent or something. Could be a different being completely. I don't really know.
To me, I think it's pretty clear that he's some kind of Maya. I think this whole section, this whole storyline, the snails, the stars, the not being able to talk, it's very clearly telling us that he's new to this world.
Yes.
He's come from the outside. He's clearly been sent here, doesn't know what's going on. He's a bit confused. I think they're going to play somewhat on that, but it's going to be quite a story arc for it to fully reveal itself.
Yes. So I feel like really this part gets a pro and a con.
Okay.
I feel like it's a pro because it creates the discussion. It's something we don't know, and it gives us the chance to talk about something that we can't go, oh, well, it's obviously this. However, I feel a con because the things I feel like it's leaning towards he is don't make sense. Like, my opinion has been, and I've said it before, is I believe he's going to end up being one of the Blue Wizards.
I would be okay with that.
However, because it was written, they came in the Second Age, but there should be two of them, and they should have arrived on a ship with Glorfindel. So that's changing law that...
Why it's not necessary.
Yeah, if they wanted to do... I might be completely wrong in him being a Blue Wizard, so this may be a pointless thing, but they could have found the Harfoots a different way if it was that way. But yeah, I feel like... Because it's on the fence, we don't know how it ends up, it gets a both.
Okay, that's fair. The Firefly situation I did like.
Yes.
I thought that was a cool way of kind of, mysterious.
Yes.
And I do want to see more, which is why we'll give it a pro.
Yes.
As well. So, moving on now, we get introduced to Keller Brimble, a character that I was very excited to see. Initially, and this is not something that was kept quiet, the casting for Keller Brimble was up for debate, I guess you could say. People were a little unhappy at the age of the actor, and obviously the short hair is a factor. Ooh, I rhymed. Can I give a pro for rhyming? No. I, for one, when in the scene, when watching it, completely forgot about all that, didn't care, thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, I'll generally say that about the short hair stuff in general.
Yeah,
like even with Alrond and stuff in the first episode, it didn't at any point bother me.
No, same.
To see it.
Through all the trailers, all the images, I was like, why have they made the elves have short hair? What else are they going to change?
Yeah.
But after watching it, I literally couldn't care less. It just didn't matter.
No, and it just is.
Hair.
Yeah.
Keller Brimble, however, very, very, very cool actor. We did meet him, Charles Edwards. And what a cool man. So suave.
Yeah.
Could be James Bond.
Yeah. He's
definitely a spy at some point.
Yeah, he had that vibe, and he gives off that idea that he is actually a very powerful being, without necessarily being the most physically imposing, and that takes some charisma.
He's like a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Yes.
The introduction of Keller Brimble was very cool. Gil Galad spoke to Elrond and said, you know, have you heard of Keller Brimble? And he's like, of course I have. The famous Elven Smith. He's amazing. I love that guy. And he says, you know, you can be involved in his plan. He's got this plan. So Keller Brimble takes Elrond to Eregion, which looked fantastic. That's a pro.
Yes, it was absolutely stunning. I can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to like have a walk around.
Yeah, I want a Khazad-dûm montage of Eregion.
Yes.
You know, which we'll get to. And the introduction of this scene is great because it opens with Fëanor's hammer.
Yes.
The hammer that was used to create the Silmarils, which as soon as they start mentioning first age stuff and things like that, I just like, yes, I just get chills. So that's a big pro for me.
Yes, 100%. It's a shame they can't mention more. Not con-worthy, because obviously they've got some stuff, but yeah, I want more first stage stuff as well.
Same.
But, yeah.
But they do also mention Morgoth in this scene.
Yes, and this is where we're gonna have to pull out a con.
Yeah.
It's I mean, the mention of Morgoth, very cool, like we said. The more they can mention him,
yeah, Morgoth is
cool.
such a huge part in Middle Earth's history.
Yes, I was worried that they might.
You'd be remembered for thousands of years.
Yeah, I was worried that it might be because of like, they might be like, oh, you can have like 5 mentions over the season or something like that. But it doesn't seem that way at the moment. However, they basically have changed him, and I know they've changed many characters, but
Morgoth is one you cannot alter at all. There was a line about how when he lusted after the Silmarils and he stole them, took them for himself, he, you know, was staring at them and was obsessed with them, and it was a tear that fell from his eye onto the Silmaril that showed him a reflection of himself. And Keller Brimble says something like, the beauty of the Silmarils even swayed, or even almost swayed Morgoth. Like, no, Morgoth would never almost be swayed. He wouldn't almost turn to good because of something so beautiful. Morgoth isn't just evil, Morgoth is evil. Like, people don't, I'm not sure if people haven't grasped that, but that's the whole point in his character.
Yeah, not every person needs to be redeemable.
No,
and that is kind of the point of him, is he's not. There's the only way to deal with him is to defeat him, which is what they had to do.
The intervention of the Valar, which is something that they do often.
Otherwise, if you had someone who was very good, they would go, oh no, I can save him. If we create something so beautiful, he will turn. It was wrong.
That bit really annoyed me. It was such a throwaway line as well, almost, and
it didn't need to be. It didn't need to be in there. It didn't change anything.
No.
It doesn't have any impact on the story.
You could have told us how beautiful the Silmarils were in a different way.
Which sadly then means that is definitely a con.
Yes, which I've already awarded.
We've already awarded.
So we're at
However,
6 each.
There is another con that comes with this.
Okay.
At least for me. You can decide if you agree with me now.
Okay.
The relationship between Keller Brimble and Fëanor was not...
mentioned?
Not mentioned. It wasn't built up to the point. He was basically like, Keller Brimble was like, oh yeah, there was this other elf called, obviously not in these exact words, there was this elf, Fëanor, who was like, everyone knows, he made the Silmarils, he was beautiful, and I want to make something as powerful as he did and as amazing as he did. I want to be the smith who's held in that renown. And it's like, oh, okay, he admires this other elf. But like, they're family. And it's not just the thing of being like, oh, there's this other guy who did this thing and I want to be as great as this. It's like, no, it's the whole idea of trying to live up to what your ancestors have done before you. I mean, it's such a thing in The Lord of the Rings with Aragorn, where he's trying to almost not be the people who came before him, but he wants to be as great as the kings before Isildur, who... Kings
of old.
Yeah, like he wants to be the great Númenórean king, not the one who fell. And it's all about the line of his blood, he needs to either live up to the great of it and not that. And it's that thing of Keller Brimble's actually trying to live up to what his ancestors have done, not just another member of his race. And I feel like that part could have been mentioned in that time that the whole tier part was.
Yeah.
And it would have given you a better idea of why he might be so interested in creating something so powerful.
Yes.
Not just out of greed, but out of a family, like, needing to live up to his ancestors thing.
I'll give that con as well, yeah. Interesting, we're now ahead on cons, 7-6 to cons.
Ooh.
However, talking about dialogue and stuff, I want to go back to the Galadriel. storyline.
Okay.
There was a line in that scene with Halbrand, which even though I didn't like the dynamic or the goings on, I didn't like that segment. I did really, really like a line from Galadriel. So they're kind of having a back and forth, like, my life's worse than yours. I've had it harder. And he says about loved ones he's lost and whatnot, and she replies with a line along the lines of, it would take more than your lifetime to list the names of those that I have lost. Like, I thought that was such a great line. It says so much in just one line, and kind of tells us about the fact that immortality isn't necessarily that great.
No.
I thought it was a very powerful line, so I want to give that a pro.
I mean, the whole thing is the death was a gift to men. Like, that is the idea of Middle-earth, that it's a gift to be able to die.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I forgot about that line. That was, I agree.
So, back to Celebrimbor and Elrond. Celebrimbor explains about his plan, shows us a scroll, which is a tower. I think we're kind of led to believe that it's going to be rings when he opens it up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was a tower, very reminiscent of the towers we see in Forged things in the Shadow of games, which I thought was cool because I love those games. And they kind of have a back and forth here and explain that he needs it done really quick, which didn't really make a lot of sense. Like, they're immortal, why do you need it done in like 6 months?
Yeah, it was like, by next spring. It's like, but why?
Why?
Like, yeah.
The only thing that I can think for that is that perhaps Sauron is already in the background. Anatar is in Celebrimbor's ear already. Like, I need this forge. Come on. I don't know. I think we'll get to. We'll see it eventually. I think.
Yeah, I feel like that's not a pro or con just yet because we're not back there yet. So it's
So Elrond's
on the shelf.
Yeah, Elrond suggests that it won't get done with an elven force. Has Celebrimbor thought about perhaps bringing in a different race to help him out? Cut to a quick jog to Khazad-dûm.
Yep.
Because Elrond is good mates with Durin.
Yep.
Which I'm fine with. I have no problems with that.
No, and I would like to actually add that potentially a pro here is for the background work of Gil-galad. Is he's obviously, I mean, it hasn't been said, but I feel like we can maybe start to gather the idea of how much of a high king and great king he is.
Yeah.
By, like, he knows Elrond's relationships. So he knows why he would send Elrond, like, he would plan why he's sending Elrond to help.
Yeah, if I give Elrond to Celebrimbor, he will suggest his mate Durin.
Yeah.
Like, we know that Gil-galad isn't against alliances, right? It's him and Elendil that formed the last alliance. So, and there were dwarves involved.
Yes.
So, yeah, he's not against it. So I think it's all him planning in the background. So I agree, that's a pro.
Yeah.
We were a bit picky about Gil-galad's character in episode 1. He definitely gained a few cons.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was, we may be making up storylines in our head here, but I agree.
Okay.
So we did get up the map for this journey to Khazad-dûm, thinking, you know, they seem to just quickly walk around the corner and there was the gate.
Yes. Which would be very strange in terms of why would Celebrimbor not think of it if they were that close?
Yeah.
But
it's not that close. It's walkable for an elf.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to do it. So I wouldn't want to be Celebrimbor who gets there and then gets sent straight back home by himself.
Yeah, and he's just kind of like, nah, okay.
Yeah, but I'll buy that they can walk there. That's fine. I want to give a pro instantly to the communication between Elrond and the guard at the door.
Yes.
So he says, I'm here. No, first of all, he expresses how great of a friendship he and Durin have to Celebrimbor. And then you have the door just open and the dwarf says, what do you want? It's just great. I loved it. And then Elrond's like, I'm here to see my friend Durin. And he's like, no. And just closes it. I just thought it was great. It was really, really simple humor.
Yeah.
But it worked fantastic. So that's a big pro from me.
Yep.
At that point then, Elrond invokes his right to some kind of challenge, tradition, to which Durin cannot refuse, I guess, which was fine. He says, Celebrimbor, you're good at your stuff, I'm going to be good at my stuff, which is like talking, I guess.
Politics for this Elrond.
So he gets taken into Khazad-dûm. Now at this point, we get introduced to Khazad-dûm, to Moria. And this is the biggest pro of both episodes for me so far.
Yes, I was praying so much Khazad-dûm would live up to what it had been built as by everything we've heard before. From Gimli describing it in The Lord of the Rings, from all the teasers we've had for the trailers and stuff, like Khazad-dûm had to be this great, just like you couldn't picture it how nice it is round. And I think they nailed it, like every part of it.
They gave us maybe 60 seconds of a little montage, a kind of tour around Khazad-dûm, and in that short time, they gave us everything we needed to know. They showed us them working, mining. They showed how the light sources kind of work and how it's all, like, it makes sense.
Yes.
You know, the lights are all lighting things for reasons, and like, it was just really clever. They showed us dwarves farming, growing crops.
Yep.
And I honestly believe that an entire civilization could live under a mountain just from this montage. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, completely agree.
From this, then we go on to a rock breaking contest.
Yes.
It's a silly scene, but it's something I can definitely believe the dwarves would do.
Yeah, that's definitely a tradition that they
Yeah.
would have. I like that.
Yeah. It was just a fun scene. It's a very serious show, and this was a light-hearted. Take it back to Peter Jackson. You know, they have like probably extended edition, but Legolas and Gimli having a drinking contest.
Yes.
You know, it's just it breaks away from the stake of the
Yeah.
world is at stake. You know, so I liked it. I want to give a pro to the rock breaking.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
We got a lot of shots of dwarves and their reactions to the contest as well, which was also great. I'll include it in that pro, sorry. But like, for example, I think Elrond's hammer breaks or something, or he loses, and there's a dwarf that's like half asleep.
Yeah.
And he just cuts to him like opening his eyes, and then he's like, ha, he laughs and celebrates. It's just funny. It just felt very dwarvish.
Yes.
And I loved it. So from here then, Elrond loses the challenge and says, Durin, my friend, will you please escort me out?
Yes.
You know, let me say a few things. So they're on the lift, which I thought was cool as well.
Yep.
And it's obvious that Durin is very annoyed at his friend Elrond for some reason. It becomes apparent that that reason is because Elrond didn't attend his wedding and missed the birth of his 2 kids. That's not a good friend. I also, like, not just was it a good explanation of why they're not talking right now, but this whole scene told us a lot about elves and their ignorance almost.
Yeah, a bit like that scene earlier with Galadriel and Halbrand. We get another example of it, but closer with elves and dwarves now.
Yeah. So when Elrond's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it," you know, and Durin says something like, "That may be the blink of an eye." It was like 60, 70 years or something. The blink of an eye to an elf, but that's a whole lifetime to a dwarf almost. You know, like it's a big difference. Like, and it shows that elves can be ignorant with their immortality.
Imagine that yourself. If you had a friend and then you get married, you have 2 kids, and they're non-existent, you would be like, "We don't just come back here and ask for a favor."
Yeah.
Like, that's not how that works.
So I love the sequence.
Yeah.
That's a ding for me.
Yeah.
At this point, Elrond apologizes and said, "I would love the opportunity to apologize to your family." Durin's like, "Right, fine. I'll take you to them. You can say sorry, and then you're out. You're not staying for dinner."
Yes.
I just love. Owen Arthur is just brilliant. Can we give a pro for Owen Arthur? Is that okay to do?
I don't know, because we could give a pro for pretty much most of the casting.
True.
We'll resist because we'd have to pro like everyone, and then it might just come uneven.
Yeah, true.
So.
Okay, so we get to meet Disa and Durin's kids.
Yes, I loved how they handled showing dwarf children.
Yes, so
the fact they had those, I'm assuming they were stone helmets, because it was one of those, like, are they actually going to show dwarf children? Like,
they're going to have beards? I was like, oh, this is going to be weird.
But yeah, the way they did that, loved it. It set up how a home life of a dwarf would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Now let's talk about Disa.
Yes.
This was
controversial.
Controversial, going into it. But I think the character of Disa and Sophia, the actress, along with the Harfoots, were the biggest and most pleasant surprise of the 2 episodes for me. I thought she was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest compliment we could probably give her was she just felt like a dwarf.
Yeah, that was it. There was nothing about any of it that felt unnatural. No. Nothing felt forced in. Nothing felt out of place. So that's all you can really ask for. Like, there was no moments I was taken out of it whatsoever.
No.
So yeah.
And she had a beard.
Yes.
It was a fairly subtle beard. It was more like long sideburns, but I liked it. Yeah, I feel like if they had given them big traditional beards, it would have just looked a little bit odd.
Yeah, but the thing is, there probably are. It's like saying with, I mean,
yeah,
we may be a bad example because we both have similar beards and not much hair.
Mine's much better
though. Most people, like, if you took a group of people, you don't all have the same styles.
No, it's true.
And stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
There's going to be a whole range of stuff within even just in the realm of Khazad-dûm that we're going to see. And Disa's just one of them. There's going to be longer ones. There's going to be potentially even shorter ones than her.
Yeah,
it's just how hair works.
Have I given a pro for Disa yet?
No.
Okay, she's getting one.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love the chemistry between her Durin and Elrond, the three of them, when they eventually do sit down for dinner, of course, was just brilliant. There was a lot of banter. She felt very strong and powerful and like a real dwarf. Durin was stubborn. He showed his stubbornness brilliantly in this scene. I loved it. And you could see Elrond's kind of calm understanding. You could see, you could see his character grow during this scene, as well as Durin. Like, it was just such a good scene. I just loved it. There was a moment where Durin burped. It's also one of those scenes, if you would describe to me like Elrond and Durin and Disa are having dinner, they're trying to fix their friendship, and he just lets out a massive belch burp. I would have been like, oh man. But I enjoyed it. Again, it made me laugh, and it kind of eased the tension, and it just worked.
That's one of those though. It's like, if you liked the Peter Jackson dwarf humor, you're going to enjoy that.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're not.
Yeah.
That's completely down to personal taste of how you like it. Yeah, it made me laugh.
I'm
so
not
I
going to
can't
give
fault.
that a pro or a con, but
No.
I wasn't. Yeah, I was just like, huh.
Again, it didn't take me out of the scene, and it made me laugh. It'll
There was also a moment here where Elrond points to a tree.
Yes.
I guess in the garden of Durin.
Yeah.
And it was a seed from one of his, I think he says the great tree or something like that. The symbol of his people. It's something along those lines. And Disa explains how Durin cared for it, and people were kind of like winding him up and making fun of him, like, oh, it's not going to grow down here. And Elrond says, like, how could this tree not grow in a lovely home like this, or something like that. It was just a really nice scene.
because Disa describes it as his third child.
Yes.
That was it.
And I loved that because it was a really nice, subtle way of showing how much Durin really does love Elrond, and you can tell that he must have really been hurt when he didn't turn up to the wedding. So it was a nice scene. I'm going to give that a pro. Ding.
Yes, so wait, was that pro for the tree?
Yeah.
For the thing?
It was the tree sequence, yeah.
Did we give a pro for the chemistry of those three?
We did.
Because we did Disa, we did the tree. I feel like that is a pro gotta be for the chemistry of those three.
Yeah.
It was just...
It was apparent on screen, and I'm not going to lie, we actually spent a little bit of time with Robert and Sophia, and we were chatting to them, and we mentioned that the chemistry was great, and she said, like, the three of them in real life just had really great chemistry, and I think they were probably a close-knit group.
Yeah, you could tell that, like the Lord of the Rings family vibe they had when they made the film, that there's definitely...
You can always tell when actors get on really well. It comes across on screen. Like, you can tell that the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, those four actors got on so well. It just came across on screen.
I mean, they still meet up to this day.
Yeah, and I can tell that Owain, Disa, and... Owain, Sophia, and Robert all had that same sort of chemistry, which I loved. Fantastic.
So yeah.
There's still a bit more in Casa Doom. We get a conversation between Durin the Third and Durin the Fourth, so the prince and the king.
Are we going to have to con the fact that there are two Durins? Because it's a big no-no. I'm not happy with it. So I don't understand it, and they haven't really explained it.
I'll explain why in a second. We're going to give this a con. So if you're not familiar, about a week ago we put out a video explaining the Line of Durian. So the Line of Durian is the most famous line of dwarfs, period. Okay, so it began with Durin the Deathless, and he was the most famous and old of all the dwarfs. And also the original. From him then, it was said that he was reincarnated into different dwarves through the ages. Now, if that's the case, if Durin is reincarnated, how can there be two at once?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
And that's just the big thing of it. You could be from the line of Durin, but you can't be Durin at the same time as another Durin.
Yes, there's lots of people descended from the line of Durin, like Gimli, for example.
Yeah, Thorin.
Yeah, like, that's fine, but I don't know, it's just weird. It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, it's one of those changes they've made that I don't see why it serves a purpose. It didn't have to be a Durin that Elrond was friends with, for example. You could have had a Durin who was king and a bit more skeptical towards everything, and you just had like another princeling.
Durin.
Another... Didn't even have to be a son, could have just been another high member within the society. So that had to be a con.
So we gave a con for that. So the two Durins talk. King Durin very skeptical, but then Prince Durin is like, yeah, but it's not the elves we have to be worried. We're the ones keeping a secret.
Yes, which just adds so much more to the scene before as well.
Yes. So we're a bit like, oh, okay. There's what secret are the dwarves keeping? Do they know that there's a Balrog? Like, what's going on? But then later, towards the end of the scene, we see a box be opened by the Durins, and it's kind of a very Pulp Fiction vibe. There's just a glow coming out of the box, and it's not explained or shown to us what's in the box. To us, I think it's quite clear.
I think there's only one thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've seen some people say, "Oh, it must be a Silmaril or an Arkenstone." That's just ridiculous.
Oh God, if it's a Silmaril, no.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, no, it has to be Mithril.
Yeah, of course.
They discover Mithril. I don't think it's actually specified exactly when Mithril is first discovered.
No.
And it's one of the things that actually have changed with the time compression is, and I may be wrong, but I don't believe Eregion is really founded until after Mithril. So I think they've kind of shoved some stuff around to make it happen in that, because I think they kind of moved closer because of it. I might be wrong with that. I do apologize. Doing this on the fly sometimes. The facts get muddled up. But yeah, so that's one of the things where I feel like Mithril had to come like quick. And what else would the dwarves hide?
No, it's true. I mean, even with Disa saying things like they sing to the mountains to tell them where like the good spots to mine are and things like that, and it's very apparent they're talking about Mithril. So it can't be anything else.
Yeah,
it's what Khazad Dûm is famous for, right? So
yes,
that's that.
Yeah. So, but I feel like the Durin thing. Sorry, just to sidestep, like the King Durin character is a much more faithful dwarf to the writings.
Yes, I agree.
I feel like if you're just going to read and make a accurate of this is what they are, the less Peter Jackson comedy vibe, that's more like what they are.
Yeah.
So I actually feel quite pro about that, about King Durin.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they've represented both sides of the dwarves in terms of the book and the adaptation.
What I find funny is people will complain like, no, the dwarves shouldn't be funny. They should be this and that. But like, we could look at, I don't know, races within humans. Like, is that like saying that, I don't know, all British people are very serious. They don't have a funny side. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, of course, just an entire race isn't exactly the same. You're going to have the serious ones, and you're going to have ones that like a bit of a joke and some banter. Like, that's just natural. Personalities differ. So it annoys me when people say, no, the dwarves can't joke. You know, like, it's just silly. Okay, that's Khazad Dûm out of the way. We're moving on now to our last storyline of the episode, which is, of course, the Southlands, and following on with Arondir.
Yes, I will give a quick thought at the beginning of saying, like, first episode, like I mentioned, this was, to me, the weakest of them. However, I feel like it improved so much just by the second episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we get through the points, you might understand more why. So they start with seeing the burnt village, where they've gone back and to Bronwyn's home village.
Yeah, and here they point out, Arondir says something on the lines of, this town was known for having a strong support for Morgoth.
Yes.
Again, mentioning Morgoth, I love. And she is like, no, like, these are my people, they're good people. And he's like, doubt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they go down there and they see that it's burnt, but the mystery here is there are no bodies, no wounded, nothing. So what's going on there, James?
It's that mysterious, like, this story is turning more into like, almost like a horror storyline in a way, and I'm all for that. I like the mystery. Obviously, we can kind of guess what's going on a bit. The assumption must be that the orcs are taking the bodies, dead or alive. I guess we aren't sure yet. I would assume alive as slaves, but unless they're trying to do something different, I don't know. But yeah, but in some ways there is still a little bit of mystery, even though we got a pretty good idea. And I just feel like that whole bit of Arondir sending her back while he goes down to follow it's a nice way to split them up.
Yes.
Because that is part of the thing that I was kind of alluding to, that I wasn't as fussed on, was like, I'm not a big fan of this elf-woman relationship. I believe we mentioned in the last episode that it shouldn't really be a thing. It's doomed to fail. And I guess technically they're not in a relationship yet. So it's that will they, won't they thing I'm not keen on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's either like, it's going to end up in, someone's going to die.
Yeah.
Because it kind of has to with the way that Tolkien wrote everything. And I just don't want that will they, won't they the whole way. Like, I want the orcs and the fact Mordor's becoming Mordor, not this green place. I want that to be the story, not a love story here.
I'm really enjoying the entire idea of this story.
Yes.
Like orcs surviving underground, kind of coming up, bringing down the humans, taking it over village by village, land by land, enslaving the humans, which is definitely what they're going to be doing. I say it's a theory, but it's going to happen. And it's just dark and I feel like it's just real. Like, imagine orcs were real things. They are terrifying, and they should exist within that horror sort of genre. They shouldn't, like, yes, I know Tolkien wrote some of the orc dialogue, and it was a little bit, not silly, but like orcs are kind of stupid, which makes them come across a bit funny. But they are terrifying creatures. No matter how you look at it, they are terrifying. And I think
they are pure evil, twisted things.
Exactly. And I think this is the best version of orcs we have seen in live action, in my opinion.
Yes.
The whole underground tunnel bit with Arondir, and when he gets to the water and he's dragged back, that whole sequence was scary.
Yes.
Legitimately, and I loved it.
I think that's a pro.
Absolutely a pro.
Yep, Arondir being captured, pro.
Yeah, it's obviously, he's probably going to get captured, be a slave himself, and then I imagine he will realize that the people that he's enslaved with are not actually all bad. The orcs are bad. These people are just being forced against their will. And I imagine he'll come around and he will save them, and kind of he's now like, he's not like that, repressed. He doesn't, you know what I mean? He's not trying to, like,
he'll just grow respect for the race of men more. As
it's been a long day.
Yes. So yeah, so that's kind of where Arondir himself ends, but we then have the other part where Bronwyn had gone back home.
Yes.
She gets into her home.
Which is trashed.
Trashed. There's holes in the floor, and there's no sign of Theo. So obviously that immediate mother worrying about her child, where she then finds him hiding in it's not even a cupboard, it's a little like hole. And he basically says, run, go away, like, you gotta go. I don't know why he doesn't think about getting out and running with her.
I know.
I don't, that was
a bit strange. He was like, go, mum.
Yeah, I was
And
like,
then closes the door.
yeah. And then she almost goes to run, which again, I would have been a bit like,
Gone.
you don't leave your kid.
Yeah.
But then it's that moment of she goes to go and then she hides in the cupboard instead, because obviously if something bad happens, she wants to be there to help her son, which I found was a good way of getting her being stuck in a cupboard for this kind of moment. Because sometimes those, in like, I guess more like generic horror films, it's always like they go hide in the cupboard and you're like, oh, there's a window there for you to escape from. Why didn't you just run out of the house?
Yeah.
All those kind of things. But it made sense for her to stay at that point.
But it didn't make sense why both of them didn't leave. So we'll take out the con and take out the pro and just give it nothing.
Just neutralize that. But the moment that it leads to is a definite pro for me. This felt very horror. It was a great first introduction to the orcs in the show. And I definitely feel like the whole vibe was executed like,
I agree,
very well.
I really didn't want to see a mother and son like action sequence teaming up, really badass killing it, but it didn't end up being that, so we'll definitely go pro here.
Yes.
It turned into what came across as a real desperate attempt to save each other's life. Like whenever Thea was kind of in danger, she was just anything she could.
Yes.
You know, and same with him when she was in danger, he was doing like tying the rope around the neck and jumping off. Like we said, that was a bit like, uh-oh, this is a bit cheesy.
If that's how it would have ended, and that would have just hung the orc, that would have been a complete con. But the fact the orc actually still like hit him and got up again.
Yeah, it didn't work. Like,
it didn't. Yeah, because it was a bit like cowboy style, like throw it down and I was happy that it didn't work.
Yeah, I love this whole sequence. I thought it was great. It was scary, and then of course at the end we have another shot of the sword, right? Where
yes, so it's just after that whole. Oh no, we got the bit where she puts the head down first.
Oh, okay, yes.
So then we cut into the bar, the butchers. I'm not completely clear on what it is.
Yeah, which previously we had seen her go there and say, the orcs are coming, we all need to leave, and they're just like, oh, come on, woman, shut up.
Yeah, it's like, the elves have gone now, we're happy.
Peace is here, the war is over, leave us alone.
Yes.
And then, obviously, the actions, the horror sequence happens, and she returns and just dumps a head of an orc on the table in front of them. And she's basically like, believe me now? So, I thought that was a really great way of kind of showing that she's a strong female lead without giving her those Galadriel set pieces where she's doing flips and jumping off swords.
Yes.
You know, she's a strong, brave character, and that was a great way of showing it. They didn't need to give her those badass fight scenes.
No, and I hope they don't grow to give her those. I hope she doesn't become that warrior as such.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see.
I really like the dynamic of her basically being a single mum at a time where we're going into a time of war. I think that it's a cool dynamic, cool storyline. Like, she just wants to protect her son. I hope she's not just here to be a love interest for Arondir.
Yes.
And I don't, like, again, I think we talked about this the other day, not every female character has to have a love interest. Like,
no, not at all.
Like, just let her be a mother in this. I think it's a great storyline and a great addition to this Middle-earth live-action world. But yeah, that head on the table, bing.
Yep, and that is, like we were just saying, that's where we lead to the last sword moment, where they're all packing up. You can see the villagers leaving, but, you know, Theo has to pull out that sword one more time. One of those moments of, if you're trying to hide it, why would you pull it out at this moment? But that's just TV, I guess. And then it does the really cool thing of, you see the blood just start to creep up towards it, the mark of Sauron glows, and the sword reforges.
Or it starts to, I don't think it finishes.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I can't quite remember.
It does like a few inches or something, but it looked great for one. The VFX on that were fantastic. And I'm really curious to see where they're going with this sword. Again, we spoke about this. I think my theory is like, I think it might be something like an early attempt at Sauron pouring his cruelty, malice, and will to dominate all life into an object. I'm
not sure it's quite as extreme. Like,
I think that would be a cool idea.
We kind of talk about off camera. Like, I don't know what the better way to say it is. Like, if you were going to shop of Sauron's weapons, you got like the Morgul blade, and it's basically next to that. It's a weapon he will give to his people that does dark things, but I don't think it would be his directly and that powerful. I think it's just something that can do horrible things to the person it would stab, but not be directly powerful like something like the ring.
I agree. I think that's probably more likely, but I think it would be cool if it was like an attempt at testing, you know, pouring some of his darkness into an inanimate object before doing the One Ring. I thought that would be a cool shout, but we'll see. And I'm going to give it a pro because it's got me intrigued and curious as to where they're going with it. So ding. And that pretty much brings us to the end of episode 2.
Yes, I believe so.
Now, our final score is 20 pros and 8 cons. So it's a pretty unanimous lead in this one. Episode 1 was quite close. Did you see the final score in episode 1 after?
I did. Can't remember it off the top of my head though.
It was more pros than cons, but it was close. I think it's like 3, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like 16-13 in my head.
Yeah. This one, 20-8. So as we said earlier, this episode we thought unanimously was significantly better than the first episode. And I think the pros versus cons, as we've gone through it now, have shown that. Let's give it a rating.
Okay. So you went first last time.
I did go first last time.
So I'll go first this time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say this was very much like episode 1 was so much setup. Episode 2, there's obviously still a lot of setup. We still haven't met everyone yet, but it was definitely pushing things along in the right direction. And I definitely enjoyed it more. I can understand why they did both episodes at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like if episode 1 had come out on its own and you had to wait a week, maybe it wouldn't have been as much of an experience.
I agree.
But they filmed it that way, but that's a whole other thing. So for that sake, I would actually potentially go as high as a 9 out of 10 for this episode. I very much loved it. There's not really, apart from the general storyline of Galadriel, I wasn't fussed on, so it definitely isn't perfect. But there's not much else I can fault with the other storylines. So
I agree.
I feel like going less than that is just being harsh for the sake of being harsh. I could very much, and I will, just go watch it again.
Yeah. I'm having a watch party at my house tonight. I want to ask you though, are we rating, and are you rating this personally, I guess, as a TV show? Or are you rating it as a Tolkien show?
I guess more as a TV show. It kind of is the same thing. We've never had a Tolkien TV show, so there's nothing to gauge it off. Like if I was going to talk about the films, I would give The Lord of the Rings 10s out of 10s. Yeah. All straight through, like clear,
same as me.
Happy days. And I wouldn't. But if you just released these first 2 episodes as a film, no, it wouldn't match anywhere near that.
No.
Like, over the 2 episodes, on average, I've got it as an 8 out of 10, which I think is very solid. But I wouldn't give it an 8 out of 10 if it was a movie. Obviously, it's a completely different format. You can't really compare them in that way. So, yeah, I guess it is more as a TV show. Yeah. I am one of those who I've accepted it's not going to be as Tolkien as I would have wished in the first place when they first announced it. But honestly, I am just so happy to be back in Middle-earth and to experience these stories and to be experiencing something new. Yeah. Like, we know the Second Age. If it was just done word for word, then there's nothing to talk about. Yeah. There's nothing to predict. There's nothing to have a discussion about. There's no theories to come with it. It just becomes, well, that's what's going to happen next week. Oh, that's going to happen next week. And that's it. Obviously, we have a rough overall storyline, but I love being able to not knowing how the dots are being connected and being able to have these discussions. So that's why it does rate higher for me. then I accept it will for some others. And I think for anyone who doesn't know Tolkien, it's a brilliant way to introduce them into the world and hopefully then get them to read the books and read everything more that Tolkien wrote himself.
Yes, I agree. And I think I
answered the question in there.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think I'll take it back to my point from the start. If you want to enjoy this show, and you're a big Tolkien fan, there are things you will just have to let go of. If you are so stuck in your ways that you're like, oh, unless the elves have long hair, I'm not going to enjoy this, then you're not going to enjoy it. You have, like, I had to let go of certain things, which I did early on. I will be straight with you, during the trailers, so much of me was so worried and I was losing hope. But after kind of just going, you know what? This is a TV show set in my favorite world that exists, fictionally, of course. Actually, no, in general. I want to enjoy this. I don't want to jump on a bandwagon of hate and then be so stuck in my ways that even if this show is good, I cannot jump off it. I don't want to be dwarven, you know? I don't want to be stubborn. And I've done that. I've accepted that things are different. It's an adaptation, which means things are going to be adapted. Just as Peter Jackson did with the films, he adapted things from page to movie, because they're different mediums, they have to have differences. It doesn't work the same way. You can't watch something the same way you read it. It just doesn't work like that. I feel like Amazon have done the same thing here, and they've adapted it to television. Again, television is very different to cinema. It has to be adapted in a different way. And I feel like you have to accept those things in your head in order to enjoy it. I really wish more of you would be okay with that. And, you know, not just say that because we've enjoyed it, we're sellouts. At the end of the day, I feel like we're just speaking honestly our thoughts, which makes us the opposite of sellouts, but never mind. Overall, I'm going to give this exactly the same score as you. I gave episode 1 7 out of 10. It was a little slower. This was so much better, but wasn't perfect. So I think 9 out of 10 makes sense. It definitely wasn't perfect, pretty much for the same reasons you said. But yeah, 9 out of 10, which episode 1 and 2, that brings us to an average of 8. So
yep, which
first 2 episodes, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that's basically where I would land if I was asked that as an overall 2-episode thing. So it works out. It makes sense.
Yeah. I'd say those 2 points have been removed purely for changes in the lore, because visually it was fantastic.
Yeah, for me,
audibly it was fantastic.
Yeah, for me, those 2 points are, one of them goes for the lore changes, and the other one goes for the weakness of the beginning of Galadriel's story, which is kind of linked into the lore changes. But if I was going to say specifically why,
yeah, I agree.
They would be the 2 reasons.
Same for me. Okay, that's episode 2 done. I hope you've enjoyed us going through the pros and cons and breaking down the episode for you. I hope you are willing to enjoy the show yourselves, or at least give it a chance. Yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a really great day, and we will see you next time on The Broken Sword.
Bye, guys.